Welcome to this week's edition of the Belau Report. I'm Jane Belau. It's been a long, lonely summer for a lot of us, for our families, for our friends, for our workers, and we're glad to be back. And we have two guests this evening, two women who are the finalists for the election in November for the position of President of the Rochester City Council, or as they say, Councilman at Large. So we flipped a coin to see who would go first, and Kathleen Harrington is the winner. And Kathleen, if you will start out by introducing yourself to our viewers and voters. Kathleen.
Well, thank you, Jane. As you said, my name is Kathleen Harrington. I've lived in Rochester for about 10 years. I came here for a job, and like many of you, I fell in love with this community and decided to stay and make this my permanent home. It's been so interesting campaigning, running into people who know you, who assume lots of things about you, and I thought I might take this opportunity just to tell you a little bit about who I am. I've always talked about what I do, but I think it's important to know who I am. So I am the daughter of working class parents. I was the first in my family to go to college, much to the distress of my parents. They could not understand where the drive was, where the drive came from that I had, and why a girl would want so much education. And from early days in my life, I knew that was my goal, to go to college, to get an education, so that I'd be able to, in the course of my life, make a difference. Even as a young child, I felt like when I saw a problem, I wanted to fix it. I jumped in. I don't know why, I just couldn't help myself. It's the way I've been all my life. Even as a little kid, I taught the other ones on my block how to ride a bike, how to take off those training wheels and go full steam ahead. Taught them how to ride the two-wheeler while their parents were really busy working. As a young woman, I worked in the Congress with other women, helping them run for office and get to the seats of power, get to the table where many women at that time were not welcome. We worked tirelessly on equity for women, on equal credit. When 9/11 happened, I volunteered. I enlisted to go to Afghanistan. I signed up with the Department of Defense, and my assignment was to help women in Afghanistan learn to be entrepreneurs, to help their families stop farming poppies and get out of the heroin trade. And most recently, I saw a problem. I saw that the chamber was in a bit of trouble, that the chamber was losing respect of the community and losing its voice. So the problem I saw was, I thought, in a community like ours, with one very large employer, it was really important for small business and nonprofits to have a seat at the table, to have a strong voice, a loud voice in how policies were made in our community. So that's when I did join the chamber. I am running to help solve another problem. The problem we have to solve together as a community is the results of the pandemic and the results of the systemic racism that we're now leaning into and actually facing. I also think there are issues that we have to work on that happened before the pandemic. Our community was growing. It was very exciting, but we were also experiencing growing pains. Many people felt that Rochester was no longer for them, that the community was leaving them behind. So during the course of this campaign, I am really running to make certain that everyone, whether you're a retiree, a young family, a single person living downtown, feels that Rochester is for you. And to do that, I want to give voice to everyone. So I'm running on a platform that is straightforward and yet complex. I believe that together we have to really move through this time and find a recovery for all. That we have to become the most inclusive city we can be. And that is going to be a challenge because some people, as I said, don't think Rochester, the way it is now, is for them. We have to make it for everyone. And the third thing I really want to do, in collaboration with the City Council, with the mayor and the administration, is to work to champion a strong and sustainable quality of life for all the residents of Rochester. So I'm running on a record of experience. I am strong, I'm an independent thinker, and I'm a passionate leader with more energy than sometimes others around me can handle. But I am that passionate leader who wants to help collaborate, bring people together, develop a shared vision so that we can recover together, be the most inclusive city we can be, and have the highest and most sustainable quality of life for all residents of Rochester. Thank you. I ask for your vote, and I'm really excited to be with you today and have this opportunity to speak with you.
Thank you, Kathleen. And Brooke Carlson is our second candidate for this position. And Brooke, would you give us your very extensive background?
Sure, thank you. So wonderful to be here today with two pioneering women. It's always good to talk about meaningful issues in our community with other strong women leaders. And Kathleen's statements made me reminisce about my days as hockey captain of my high school team and a state team here in Minnesota, and one of the first women's hockey teams ever in our city of Rochester. So I also just had a chance to talk with Jane and was reminded this morning that my grandfather was interviewed on the Belau report. And so it's such an honor to be here following in his footsteps and have the opportunity to speak with you all today. So I'm Brooke Carlson. I'm very pleased to be here and to be running for City Council President. This is a challenging time and we have difficult decisions ahead of us. But I was born and raised in Rochester. Go Rockets. And it is my job and my passion to bring public and private sector partners to address some of our most complex and challenging community issues. I am a small business owner. I am a mother of 2 young sons. I am a leader in the nonprofit community and a youth hockey coach. And I understand that and have the heartache that many of you are going through right now. And I believe I'm uniquely positioned to lead our community through this difficult time. I've committed my career to leading partnerships that address the underlying causes of inequity and improve our communities. My expertise in urban planning, public health, and human services enables me to guide efforts that create strong, inclusive communities. For example, I've worked at the State Department of Health and was part of the core team that led the passage of state legislation to improve health outcomes and reduce healthcare costs statewide. I was part of the team that led the development of a $47 million statewide initiative that was enacted in 86 counties and 9 tribal governments. More recently, I convened 10 counties, multiple health systems and health plans, and community-based organizations to develop our governance structure for our brand new Southeast Minnesota Regional Mental Health Crisis Center, which will fill critical gaps in our continuum of care. Through my role leading the Rochester Nonprofit Consortium, I've been so fortunate to be at the center of our community's COVID-19 response to collectively addressing our community's most essential needs right now. We've made strides around food security and tech access and meeting people's household needs. It's really remarkable, and this example of collaboration across our city, county, school district, Mayo Clinic, and our nonprofit sector that demonstrates we can do this. We can move to a different place in this community. I'm a trusted and effective leader that has worked for supporting people and our economy. This crisis has reshaped the landscape of our community. A favorite saying of mine is, with breakdown comes breakthrough. This is our chance to be innovative and address some of the issues that are most meaningful to families in our community: housing, childcare, transportation, how we address increasing costs of living here to maintain our high quality of life at the same time, and how our major economic development initiative, Destination Medical Center, benefits us all. We can work together across sectors and within the city to ensure that we are leading towards a promising future and can determine how both our aspirations for growth and our protection of the people who live and work here can happen at once. In this time of uncertainty, it is my sincere commitment to bring our many voices together to reimagine Rochester as a just community where all can thrive, one that comes from a place of compassion, courage, and hope. Thank you.
All right. Kathleen, why are you running for this position of President of the City Council?
Well, thank you, Jane, for that question. I'm running for President of the City Council very intentionally. A year ago, I probably would not be at this stage. I would not be throwing my hat in the ring. But because of the circumstances we face, because of the impact of the pandemic, the economic impact, the social impact, the realization and leaning into systemic racism's impact in our community in terms of gaps in opportunity, equity, healthcare, and education, I've decided I wanted to run. I want to run because I think the experiences I have accumulated over many years can be valuable now. I have deep experience in all levels of government, in working with administrative parts of government and legislative parts. I know how the interplay works between the two. I've been watching the City Council intensely for 3 years now. I've seen their actions. I understand how it works. I have some objectives I'd like to discuss and to work on changing how it works, but I am running because I believe I have the substance, the experience, the skills in developing consensus, collaborative partnerships. I've built programs, but most importantly, I build teams. Teams that believe and can achieve what they and others never thought possible. That's what I want to do now. That's what I am running. I think it is time to have a strong leader, an energetic leader, a passion for this community, and expertise and experience with all the different economic sectors of our community. And most importantly, working to make the workers of this community thrive with good jobs, good benefits. We have to restore our economic vitality here to really strengthen this community and get on a path to a recovery for everyone. So I'm running, not out of arrogance, but out of commitment to use what I have learned over the years to make a difference in collaboration and consensus building with the city, my fellow city council members, the mayor, the administration, the county, and the school board. Over these years, I've developed deep and substantive relationships with them and with partners in the state and the federal government. I want to use that benefit to help our community thrive and grow. That's why I'm running, Jane.
Okay, Brooke, Carlson,
Sure.
Why are you running for the position of President of the Rochester City Council?
Well, thank you, Jane. Many issues or many thoughts come to mind as I hear that question. For instance, I remember being student class president in 6th grade and speaking at our graduation ceremony and thinking, I love leading and I want to keep doing this. And as I grew up, I continued to have that aspiration to be in leadership, to make improvements in our community. I have always studied issues and worked on issues around equity, and I've worked across different stakeholders to figure out how do we collectively use our resources to make the most meaningful change. So in the past many months, in the response to COVID, I've had the fortune and opportunity to be at the heart of our community's response and had a chance to see what the landscape looks like right now. This is a tough time, and I'm a small business owner, so I am feeling it very much so with the uncertainty of the future ahead. We have a chance to innovate, to be more efficient, and to work across systems in a way that we never have before. I know I can do this. And not to mention, I am a public health professional, and this is a pandemic. I understand the need to be thoughtful about how we prevent the spread of illness at the same time as promoting our business sector so we can thrive. There is no one solution, and the city has limitations in what it can do, but I want to bring my skills in collaboration and in facilitation of stakeholders to make progress in our community. Thank you.
Brooke will give you the next question, and that is, what is the biggest problem Rochester is facing right now? And I know there are several, but what is the most important one?
There are many things that come to mind. Right now, we know that there's going to be quite a transition in leadership in our community. So not only with the election and new elected officials, but we'll have a transition in city administration leadership as well. We'll also have a transition in several of our other supporting organizations that really do meaningful work in our community. So having strong, bold, brave leadership come in and do good work and be ready to hit the ground running is critically important. From a community standpoint, I'm very concerned about issues such as housing. Right now, the issue of childcare is very real to my family and to many of my friends and across the community with the uncertainty around our school year and what's to come and what we do during these different hybrid models or distance learning models. I'm concerned about equity and how our staffing in our city and on our boards and commissions, or the representation on our boards and commissions, better reflect the diversity in our community, so our decisions as a community are driven by a broad variety of perspectives and voices. And there are just a whole number of other issues. I would have said transportation as one of the major issues if this were 8 months ago, but right now I think some of our other issues like housing and childcare, when we're facing an eviction crisis with such uncertainty with school, are some of our most pressing issues.
Kathleen, in your view, what is the biggest problem facing the city of Rochester right now?
I think the biggest problem facing the city of Rochester right now is a combination of suffering and how do we meet that in an environment of fiscal restraint. The pandemic has shown us so clearly things that existed in our community before, inequity that existed in our community before, but for some reason we were able not to really face it. We have to. Homelessness, hunger, needs have been well met by the county, have been met by many great nonprofits, but they've increased. They've increased to a capacity beyond the capacity of many of these organizations. So I think as a city, in collaboration with the other partners, the schools and the community, we have to really lean into the human suffering that we've seen, the injustices that we've seen, the gaps in equity that we've seen. And while doing that, we have the daunting challenge of delivering the city services, the first-class city services, in an era of less revenue. So creating a budget to meet more needs is going to be a huge challenge. That's the immediate challenge I think the city government faces. Being compassionate, being truly acknowledging the suffering in our community, and the fiscal austerity that we have to have. It's one of the reasons I am running. I have worked on budgets at the federal level, at the state level, and in the past with the city at the local level. I believe there's going to be a need for much more systems thinking, much more innovation, much more review like every small business and family is doing now, and separating out the essential from the non-essential to the nice to do. This is not going to be easy. This is going to be a real tough assignment for this city council and then for the next city council to operationalize this. Tough decisions are going to have to be made. Clear thinking will have to be done. And I think it's going to call for a new level of collaboration with the city, the school board, and the county to look at eliminating any duplicative services and really separating out and together talking about what do we really need to do to be a city of the first class, to deliver the services that people need and deserve, and to do it in an environment where there will be less revenue, but will eventually get us on a glide path to a sustainable recovery for everybody.
Okay, the pandemic has left its mark on the city, the workers who commute to work here, the people who live here. What can the city council do to revitalize, help small businesses restart, to figure the downtown will be full of people again in the future? What would be the role of the city council in trying to restart the city of Rochester? And we'll talk about DMC next. All right, and Kathleen, if you would take this one.
Sure. So the question is, what's the role of the city council, as I heard it correctly, in helping our economy recover, in helping our small businesses strengthen? And one of the things I look at this issue in phases, Jane. I see that there's an immediate, and then there's a midterm, and then a short-term phase. For the immediate phase, I think what the city council and the administration and the mayor must do is really focus on that budget. How do we deliver the services that have to be done in a way with the more limited revenues they're going to have? But in addition, and this is something I've stressed at the chamber for 2 years now, the city must examine its role in increasing the cost of doing business and affecting job creation in this city. The city has layered on cost, on one cost on top of another, from parking to licensing to permitting fees, and they never really evaluate collective impact. Right now is the time we must do that. The cost of doing business in this city cannot be increased. It should be decreased, and that's going to be something that has to be tackled on the budget. If we want to create jobs and recovery, we cannot put shackles around businesses' ability to do just that. The cost of doing business is way too high, and this will involve collaboration with the county on issues of property tax. We've worked very hard at the chamber, and I've worked very hard with the county and others to secure deferments of property tax payment. But the property taxes that have happened here as an inadvertent consequence of DMC raising property values has really hurt businesses' ability to compete and to thrive. So I think we have a number of economic issues, much of which circle around the budget, that have to be done to make certain that Rochester is a better environment to start and sustain and thrive a small business. And that clearly impacts the nonprofit community, which is supported by the private sector. So I say intense focus on our city spending, better collaboration with the spending of the county, and how does that work together to reduce the cost of doing business for our people and help create jobs. One other thing that I think is really important for the city to do, and it's not going to happen immediately, but I think the city has really abandoned inadvertently its responsibility for economic development. And I think there'll be time later to talk about that, but I think the city has not done enough to keep business here. There's no reason why Ampe or Seneca should leave without us putting up a fight, without us saying, what will help you stay here? We want your jobs. We want you here. We want you helping to pay and contribute to the tax base. That happened. It was wrong. And they go other places and we don't find out why. We also, as a city, should do everything we can to attract new business here. If we learned anything during this pandemic, is that reliance on one institution that we thought was immune from economic impact is not healthy for a community. We've known that for years. The city must now develop a capability to make economic development a priority. Thank you, Jane.
Okay, Brooke. Carlson, what in your view is the role of the Rochester City Council in trying to help our community revitalize itself?
Sure, so several thoughts. First of all, Kathleen mentioned the impact on the nonprofit community related to the business sector. And I don't think that that's always an explicit connection. And I just want to take one moment and talk about how important it is to support our business community and our small businesses and Mayo Clinic, which is the backbone, financial backbone of this community, because every challenge that the private sector sees results in ripple effects to the nonprofit and government sectors. So if the private sector is not able to pay employees fair wages and benefits, or has to lay off employees because of the crisis we're going through, that subsequently ripples to impact dependence on nonprofit support services or government support services. So we want to keep our resources invested where it makes most sense to have a thriving community instead of one that is dependent on our supportive services, which are wonderful and we're so lucky to have them here. But it's not the only, I mean, we need to support the private sector to make sure we have a robust economy. So I said Mayo Clinic's the financial backbone of our community, but small businesses are the cultural backbone of our community, and we need to be doing everything we can to get as many businesses through this crisis as possible. The role of the City Council, there are many tools and levers we can use, but as Kathleen's been saying and as I've been saying, we need to do this in partnership across sectors in this community. The City Council only has so much control and so many tools available to them. They are absolutely responsible for assessing those tools and figuring out where we can make changes to make our services more efficient, so we are less dependent, or we are more able to save dollars instead of increasing property tax, as was mentioned, and doing that in partnership with the county, so the county then doesn't just increase taxes and everybody is negatively impacted. Businesses across our community are going through a whole variety of challenges. So when I've spoken to them, some have brought up issues around costly and arduous delays in inspection processes that end up delaying capital improvement projects or just costing way above and beyond what was expected. Is there a chance to increase efficiency in those processes? There's just no one solution. There are multiple solutions we need to tap into. Downtown businesses are facing decreased foot traffic due to changes in Mayo staffing plans and reduced visitors, and now construction projects downtown. How can we work with our partners like the RDA and the Chamber to get people downtown and promote those businesses and make it as easy as possible for people to be accessing readily those opportunities? We are here to listen and explore how the next city council can do as well of a job as possible, facing very real budget constraints. And in order to do that, we need to be thinking about efficiency, collaboration, and community-led decision-making to help us spend our reduced resources as smartly as possible. Thank you.
All right. Law enforcement, we have to address that because some of our larger cities are talking about reducing funds for the police and defunding them and changing the direction of law enforcement. Do you support the law enforcement, the police department of the city of Rochester? Brooke.
Sure. Yes. I support the police department and have had great conversations with Chief Franklin, and I firmly believe we're standing on a solid foundation to really do a smart assessment of our policies and practices, find opportunities where we can make positive changes in the culture of policing. But more importantly, because of what's happening around the country and because of some, as Kathleen said, unearthed inequities that we maybe weren't as aware of before, we have the opportunity to reimagine public safety. Public safety is and policing is a very significant part of our general funds budget. it is an opportunity to think about how do we shift some of our resources upstream to prevent crime and create an environment, which we already have a very safe community, but really nurture an environment where all people and businesses can thrive, and that we're reducing that interaction with policing to begin with. So the City Council has control over the policing budget, but the police chief reports to the mayor. So I think there are a few opportunities that the City Council in particular can have an impact on how to promote a safe community. A couple ways. So that's engaging authentically in a broad range of community voice, especially those experiencing injustices, so we can hear what the real experiences are and where there are opportunities to narrow those disparities and interactions, negative interactions in particular with police. There are already networks set up across this community to engage. The city does not have to recreate the wheel or add a bunch of staffing. We can do this based on how this community already thrives in our connections with different voices. The second is around collaboration, in case you haven't heard me say that enough. But all of our agencies and all of the communities across the country are going through this too. We're lucky to have not had any major crises here related to policing, so we are starting in a good place. But it is the chance to be active and think about how we can work together to create a safer community with fewer resources. And so part of the solution of working with the county on the social worker program and with county corrections is so hopeful, because it shows that investment in how do we get the right people to the right places with those positive interactions as much as possible, and really lean on our strong police department to engage when absolutely necessary and when there are threats on the line. Thank you.
All right, Kathleen, law enforcement and support.
I am a strong supporter of public safety, and I believe there are 4 factors that really make a system work, a public safety system work. 1 is leadership, 2 is culture, 3, transparency, and 4, citizen engagement and oversight. From the leadership perspective, I think our community is very fortunate to have those that are in leadership here. I believe Chief Franklin came to the city with a belief and a leadership code for the men and women of the Rochester Department, for police from the heart, police with your heart. He also came with a substantive belief and knowledge in the 21st Century Task Force. He has supported the policies that recently passed the legislature and put many of them into play before they were even passed by the legislature. So I say, from the leadership perspective and the men and women who are on his team, we're fortunate. From the culture perspective, that is so hard to know culture until it's a problem. So how do we constantly look at culture, monitor culture? We have to, depend on the leaders to be doing that. And I think, as I said, we have leaders with the right values, the right commitment, and the right expertise. But culture has to always be monitored carefully. And that speaks to transparency. The police department must be always honest with the citizens of this community about issues they're facing, about issues they're having among their own. In the past, there's been a tendency, when things happen, not in this community, but in others, for police departments to circle the wagons and protect one another. I think those days have to come to an end. I think they're on their way out, and it's up to us, the last point, citizen engagement, to make certain that that is the case. Citizens must be engaged, must be examining that culture. We have tools at our disposal, and now a new one, a dashboard to show us the incidence of police response and the type of response that was applied. And it's up to us, citizens, to participate in the police oversight, in participating in the meetings of the commission. Those meetings happen with few people in the audience. That is not the way to really engage and conduct oversight. So it's a partnership between the cities and the department, the citizens and the department. And we are fortunate to have a leader who is open and willing to have tough conversations with all of us, to be transparent. And now it's up to us to really make certain that that is the case. I think it's also up to the citizens to speak to those who have felt on the outside, who have felt more threatened. As a white woman, I never had to say to my stepson or nephew, be careful when you get stopped. I never had to have the talk. I never thought about it. But I'm not a black mom. And I think we all have to walk in those parents' shoes and understand it, empathize with it, and conduct that oversight with that in mind. So I think we're in a good place, but I think culture, leadership, transparency, and citizen engagement are the 4 ingredients that will keep public safety healthy and strong in this community and give the citizens of this community the confidence that they need to live and have a high quality of life. Thank you, Jane.
Okay, we have 10 minutes extra tonight.
Oh boy.
And we are like 4 questions away from final statements.
Oh my goodness.
And so let's just shorten the answers a little bit.
Oh no.
And when you think of the money that Rochester is going to need for its infrastructure, its aging infrastructure, the transit system that's being proposed by the Destination Medical Center and the city and the county, the parking, sources of revenue, what do you think of first? Taxes, fees, other sources of revenue? How are we going to pay for everything we need to do? Kathleen.
Additional sources of revenue. Well, I think first of all, it cannot come from the taxpayer, commercial or personal, at this time. That should be a non-starter. That's one of the reasons I'm running, is because I have relationships. I have an understanding of other funding streams, particularly the federal government and the state government. I understand, especially how DOT, the Department of Transportation, works. I have relationships there with with the career staff who makes those work. I can work in partnership with our mayor, with our city administrator, with other members of the council to increase the flow of funds to our city. We are a unique city, which should make us, because of Mayo Clinic, because of the amazing travel and the 3 million visitors we have a year, we're unique, and we should leverage that to create additional revenue streams for our city. I also think that it's important right now to re-examine some of the plans, not to necessarily put them on hold, but we don't know the future. We don't know what the workplace is going to look like and what the commuter traffic situation is going to look like. So I think we have to pause for a moment, re-examine, do some future thinking. But I believe we can create additional sources of revenue through leveraging the uniqueness of this community, both at the federal level and at the state level. And I'm prepared and want to help Rochester do just that.
Okay, Brooke, Carlson.
Sure.
Fees, taxes, or other sources of revenue.
Sure. Well, I am also very concerned about the idea of just raising property taxes to make up for the deficit we're facing. I do not think that is an appropriate solution. And so re-examining our current expenses, as Kathleen said, to think about opportunities for increased efficiency or other reductions in spending is just the reality of what we're facing. Our residents can't take on the burden of extra taxes right now. My family has experienced job loss. I'm a small business owner. I know the struggle of what it means to be uncertain about where we're going and have lived multiple months with reduced income. That's a reality so many are experiencing. So we need to be very thoughtful about what we're doing to reduce costs, and only in the very most certain circumstances would we even consider raising taxes. We do need to support our business sector, as I said before, because if we get more people shopping and spending sales tax, there is an opportunity to make up for some of that deficit. So I'm hopeful that there's some room to grow in that area. But I have brought in in working at the state and in local levels, I've brought in tens of millions of dollars in federal and state funding to support initiatives that improve our communities. I may not have the same relationships that Kathleen has, which are incredible in the federal government, but I have worked my entire career in partnership with the state and local government and know that there are many creative opportunities to secure funding. I also have worked extensively with our community foundations and foundations around the state and country, and I know as we build plans that are grounded in our community's best interests and our community's voice, we would be able to explore those opportunities to get funding behind those efforts. So there's again, no one easy solution. It's a combination of solutions, least of which is imposing those expenses on our residents of Rochester. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to have one more question before you do closing statements, and it's a very important one. It's one about how will the City Council work with the County Board of Commissioners and the Destination Medical Center when the community is changing as fast as it is? We're watching this transit proposal as if we're going to have the same number of commuters, and I don't think that that's probably how it's going to end up. But how are you going to work with the other bodies that are involved in leadership in affecting our city besides the City Council? And Brooke,
okay.
I guess it's your turn.
Sure. So I'm absolutely 100% or more in support of working across these government bodies. I don't think we're going to, well, I'll say, I think the time of working in silos is well behind us. We must work together, and we are in a situation where we have a potential quite significant shift in school board representation, county board representation, and city council representation. We have a new opportunity to build new relationships across those entities that haven't existed in the past. And in fact, there's been some very negative history in situations where the city and county, or city and school board, or county and school board have worked together. We can do it better. We can do it differently. And we have, I think it's systems. So if you think across all of our different entities in this community and how each of us are serving a very similar population, the idea of figuring out how we work together towards shared goals, shared values, shared outcomes, to how do we do that? How do we meet those goals and keep that at the center instead of personality challenges or other issues that may have come up? If we can come to an agreement on what our shared goals and outcomes are for this community, we can better invest resources and work together to achieve those. Thank you.
All right, Kathleen?
So how do we work together? Well, I think that depends on leadership. That depends on strong, committed leadership to be willing to say to people, let's leave our personal or political agendas at the door and really focus on the people of Rochester. I believe I'm the leader who can do that. I don't do that alone, but I'm strong enough and have the experience to be comfortable enough in doing that. Sometimes Minnesota nice gets in the way. It gets in the way of doing some of the tough things, of saying the truth to one another that we need to. I'm not afraid, nor have I ever been afraid, to speak truth to power. And now is the time that we have to say to all of the leaders in this community, come together. It is critical. It's not about your pet project. It's about the people that you serve. So I think it has to be done. I think it will be done. I'm confident and hopeful that you'll vote for me, and I will be able to be a part of the strong leadership in this community, the passionate leadership focused on the people and not our individual programs or our individual budgets, but the entire community. Our community depends on it. Thank you.
All right, closing statements from each of you, and Kathleen, since you went first, we'll take yours first here. And please both address communication with your constituency, because I dropped that question off, and hope you'll cover it in your closing statement. Kathleen Harrington.
Well, thank you for this opportunity, Jane, to be with you and your viewers. I really appreciate it. As I said, I'm running based on my experience. I'm running because I think this is an extraordinary time, unprecedented time. This is not a stepping stone for me. This is a capstone of years of service. Service that's been driven by high energy, passion, and a deep desire to make a difference. I want to do that here, and I want to do it with all the people of Rochester, which really affects how do we work together. I've called for a new brand of outreach for the City Council, to work together, talking to people in each other's wards, understanding the collective needs, so that we're not focused strictly in a parochial way, but we can have a better idea of the collective needs of this city and develop a collective agenda in these unprecedented times. I believe I'm the leader who can do that. I believe I have experience from various things I've done in my past to do that. But most importantly, I have the passion to do that, the energy to do that, the desire to do that with you and with others. So I welcome the opportunity to serve you. I request your vote, your consideration, and I ask that you go to my website at voteforharrington.com if you want to learn more, and feel always free to call me or ask any questions. I welcome that opportunity. Thank you.
All right, Brooke, Carlson.
Sure. Thank you,
Closing
Jane.
statement.
What a pleasure to be here today. I believe you should support me as your candidate for City Council President, because not only am I a small business owner and a trusted community leader, but I'm a mom of 2 young sons and a daughter of retired parents who live here too, and I want to uphold a quality of life for them and for generations to come. I understand what parents are going through and other business owners are going through right now, and my heart aches for those families. I'm worried about having a successful hockey season this fall with my sons. We just finished signing up, and I hope all of you did for your children too. Today's the deadline. I'm at the heart of our community's collective response that support people and create efficient, just, and thoughtful systems that work together toward our shared goals. My strength is in learning from a broad array of voices and leaning on those networks of people that already exist in our community, so we can learn in a safe and authentic environment what is most important to people who live and work here. We need to drive efficient and effective delivery of services to provide value to all of the residents who live here. Budget shortfalls demand that we be bold and creative and make tough decisions when we need to. I'm ready to do that. This will require new public-private partnerships to address issues around transportation, workforce and affordable housing, and economic development. The same old ways of doing things with the same old players is not going to work. I'm committed to learning from what we've done really well already in this community and finding ways that we can address the systems where there are deficits. I respect and admire my opponent, Kathleen, and I look forward to working with her regardless of our positions in January. If you'd like more information about me, you can visit Brooke2020.com. Happy to talk anytime. Thank you so very much for your time this evening.
And we want to thank you both for your willingness to serve the community in this position and wish you both luck. And for our viewers, you can watch this on channel 181 and also on YouTube. So Kathleen Harrington and Brooke Carlson are candidates, and thank you for your interest in their offices. Have a good night and have a good week.